Ladies have too many avenues for these type of situations to go to. They have too many options, too many avenues. Take advantage of them.
Hank, just look up the stats on you. Just look up the stats on the increased chances of being killed when women try to leave the relationship. I mean, it's not making up excuses.
Did you hear what I said? I told my daughter, if that was happening, end him. Mm-hmm. End him. Yeah, but JP, if I'm whooping a woman's ass, that's not a mistake. That's abuse, dog. Absolutely. I'm intentionally trying to whoop her ass. Absolutely. That's not good. There's nothing mistake about that.
Well, I just
no mistake is going to be if she stayed with me. You know what I'm saying? Stay with me even on whooping her ass. That's the mistake she's making by even staying with me. She shouldn't stay with me. I don't deserve to be with her. If I got to whoop her ass, I don't deserve to be with nobody.
I just wanted to speak to Hank's statement about, the person staying because, they must like it, they get turned on by it or something. Just like I have a cousin who worked, that was part of her job. She worked with abused victims of abuse. And there's a myriad of reasons why people stay. Some of them, one of the things is out of fear of leaving, that the person will follow through on their threat of like, if you leave, I'm going to kill you. So sometimes they stay in that situation because they've experienced where they've gotten protection orders and things like that. And a lot of times, those who are being abused and have those threats, that is when that threat happens, like because the person said that they were leaving or they want a divorce, and then that's a level of control of the abuser, and once they feel like they're losing control, they up the ante with that. So that can be a reason why they stay. Somebody brought up a financial abuse, and so sometimes it's like, if I leave, where do I go? I don't have friends or family, because a lot of time abusers, isolate their victim. Or you might have family members who have said, just leave, come stay with me. And they continually say, okay, I'm gonna come. And then it gets to a point that the family member is like, he or she's going to keep going back to that situation. I'm not dealing with it. So then they don't feel like they have anybody that they can go to or have any financial support, or how am I going to leave? I got kids, things like that. So there are a myriad of reasons why they stay. It's not because they like it or enjoy it. It's just a matter of not necessarily knowing how to move, how to navigate that situation. So I just wanted to, put that out there, because I don't want you to misspeak on people who have been through that experience and then just say, oh, you must have liked it.
Yeah. Well, to me, if you have kids and you stand doing that bullshit, you're selfish already.
Well, if they threaten the kids, because that has happened.
Thinking about the kids.
They just had on.
You can't be thinking about the kids.
Not too long. I'm sorry. They just had on the news not too long ago where the guy killed the baby, that he was on like FaceTime or FaceChat or something like that with the mom watching, because he was upset at the mom, and he had the baby and literally killed the baby in front of the mother. So sometimes out of protection, a lot of times women will stay in a relationship when they feel like the kids are going to be at risk as well. Like, because sometimes they'll be like, if you try to leave me, I'm going to hurt the kids. So sometimes that's a way of control to keep them in a relationship too. Now, I do agree with you. At some point, you want them to get to a point where they have a plan. A lot of times they teach those who are in abusive relationships that they have to plan their escape. Like them just trying to leave can create a bigger issue, a bigger problem. So they would need to create a plan first, and then be able to carry out that plan and an exit. So Yeah, but the bottom line is, at some point you have to get to the point where you leave. That's the goal. If the abuse is that, significant, you need to go ahead and leave, but you have to do it in a safe way that's going to protect you and your children if you have children.
But
You got
mistaken,
to make a plan.
to me, you got to be selfish as hell if you stay in that situation. You got to be, because you're not thinking about the kids. You're just worried about yourself now. If your kids put in a situation where it's constantly being abused, how are you thinking about them when you're staying in that situation? When you letting them continue to be exposed to that situation? So it could eventually happen if that man don't get help, that he can end that woman. That could eventually happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to continue to sit in that situation because you think it's betterment for the kids. No, it's not.
No, I never said that they think it's better for the kids. I think it's out of protection for the children sometimes until they get their plan together.
Ladies have too many avenues for these type of situations to go to. They have too many options, too many avenues. Take advantage of them.
Hank, just look up the stats on you. Just look up the stats on the increased chances of being killed when women try to leave the relationship. I mean, it's not making up excuses.
Did you hear what I said? I told my daughter, if that was happening, end him. Mm-hmm. End him.
I don't think warranting death is a good necessary thing to do when it comes to abuse either. Though I understand the emotional trigger that be.
Always important.
I don't think killing somebody is going to
let you continue to abuse me and hit me and think I'm accepted. I'm going to end you.
Well, I understand that, but I don't think death is going to solve anything other than end the particular abuse that's occurring. I think there are many avenues, as you said, to being able to stop that. But just to speak on the other end, men and women escape out of relationships differently, obviously, because men are physically stronger than women are, and women are not as strong. So they're going to try to get out of relationships that are abusive differently, and most of the time stay because of that physical threat. Whereas a man, more likely than not, is going to be able to get out of that relationship a lot faster. But I don't think warranting death is ever a good thing, even when bad things are happening, because, at the end of the day, now you're a murderer, right? I understand that, the reason as to why it occurred. But, my father's ex-military. My father had many chances. I watched my mother slap the shit out of my father to the point where he had a cut down his face. And my father's killed lots of people in the military, but he chose not to hurt my mother. And I always ask my dad again, why would you stay? And he would say, well, I came from a family where there was no father in the home. I wouldn't want my children to not have their father. Now, eventually, over time, the relationship, like I said, got better. But I did see my father have to endure a lot of physical abuse. But his reason was always because he experienced what it felt like to live with just a mom. And he didn't want us to deal with that despite going through that physical and mental abuse. My father had many chances to erect physical abuse, but he never did that. He just kind of ate it. And even now he tells me he's happy that he did it because he's glad to see the strong man I became. But I still kind of feel guilty sometimes because that was the reason as to why he endured it. But I don't think death is a good thing to do. I think it's best to just try to leave as best you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think also too, we've seen situations where the person who was abused killed their abuser, and they still treated that person who was abused as the culprit,
manslaughter,
perpetrator.
You're right, as a killer, as like a cold-blooded killer. Yeah,
exactly. So we look at the example of the woman who was sex trafficked and sexually abused, and then we look at the woman who was in an abusive relationship where they all killed their lover or perpetrator, and they were treated in a very hostile manner. So I think it's always important to look at where the optics are looked at, because people on the outside trying to look in keyword, think that they have a painted perception of, well, they should have did this, they should have did that, they should have did this. They have all these listed excuses, but they don't really understand the underlying circumstances that had gotten that person to that point. I'm sure that they tried. I'm sure that they, try to bring in other interventions, but none of it worked. Unfortunately, there's not one size fits all. And unfortunately, things got so bad that it ended up in that kind of tragedy. And I think that's to like Hint's point that he's been talking about. I think it's allowing things to kind of get to that point